I was supposed to become the cruel stepmother who destroyed 3 children and died at their hands. Instead, they began treating me like I was their entire world. My version of parenting consisted of forcing them to clean up after themselves, yelling at them to go to bed on time, and punishing them with schoolwork. Yet, when I completed my mission and died, my husband and children nearly destroyed the world to bring me back. The first thing Elliot saw after dying was a chandelier. The second was a child standing by the bed, holding a vase as if debating whether to commit murder before breakfast. Elliot blinked, and the child blinked back. Then a mechanical voice sounded in his head, welcoming him to the tragedy novel The Blood Crown Heirs and informing him that he had transmigrated into the role of the vicious stepmother. Elliot groaned, mentally asking to be put back, but the system denied the request. The boy with silver-black hair narrowed his eyes. Father said omegas cry after suppressants, but you're talking to the ceiling. How old are you? Elliot asked weakly. 10, too young for murder. Put the vase down. The child lowered it. A screen flashed before Elliot's eyes, identifying the boy as Lucian Hartwell and outlining Elliot's tasks. Maintain a cruel persona, increase the children's future villain points, prevent them from forming an attachment, and survive until completion to return to his original world. The system cheerfully displayed 3 tiny figures holding knives to illustrate his future killers. The bedroom door opened, and Cedric Hartwell stepped inside, a tall alpha with cold gray eyes and a demeanor suited for a high-profile investigation board. He was the husband who had ignored his family until it collapsed. Cedric glanced at Elliot before addressing the boy. Aiden, breakfast. The child stiffened and left without a word or a smile, leaving the room feeling colder. Cedric adjusted his cuffs. You fainted yesterday. Elliot searched the memories in his head. The original Lucian was a spoiled, bitter person violently jealous of Cedric's deceased first spouse, the perfect future monster. Elliot looked at Cedric. You left your 10-year-old son alone holding a vase over my unconscious body. Cedric paused. He probably wouldn't have hit hard enough to kill you. What a comforting household, Elliot replied. The system laughed in his head, mocking the husband's complete lack of emotional warmth. Cedric frowned. You're acting strange. I died yesterday. You had a panic attack. Same feeling. Cedric stared at him for a long moment. I'll return late tonight. Do your children even know your face? The alpha stopped and a dangerous silence filled the room. The system panicked, warning Elliot that he was going off script, but Cedric only spoke quietly. They're not children anymore. Then he left. Elliot rubbed his face, noting that the family desperately needed therapy in a world that didn't provide it. Breakfast was even more strained. 3 children sat silently at a massive dining table. Aiden, the eldest, watched him like a suspicious wolf. Lucas, the middle child, looked ready to fight, and tiny Lily clutched her spoon with both hands while the servants trembled around them. According to the novel, Aiden would become a terrifying political manipulator. Lucas would dominate the underworld, and Lily would grow into a notorious poison expert, all of them meeting horrible ends. The system reminded him that neglect builds excellent villains, but Elliot only noticed Lily's uneven sleeves, Lucas's bruised knuckles, and Aiden's exhaustion. Your father really sucks, Elliot muttered. What? Lucas snapped. Nothing. A servant accidentally spilled tea beside Lily, causing the little girl to flinch so violently that the cup shattered on the floor. The servant panicked, begging for forgiveness, while Lily lowered her head as if expecting punishment. Something twisted inside Elliot's chest. He slammed his hand against the table. Why are you apologizing? Everyone froze. Elliot pointed at the broken glass. Lily dropped it. Lily cleans it. The little girl stared in shock, and the system gasped, registering this as cruelty and awarding him dark points for making a wealthy child do manual labor. Lily slowly climbed down from her chair. I clean it. Yes, Elliot crossed his arms. You break things, you fix things. The little girl carefully picked up the cloth. Her hands shook at first, then steadied. Aiden watched quietly. Lucas frowned, and for the first time the terror left the room. The system spoke up again, warning Elliot that his parenting had accidentally improved her self-confidence, making him a very concerning failure of a villain. Over the next few weeks, Elliot tried his best to be cruel. When Lucas punched another child at school, Elliot dragged him back to apologize personally, telling him that violence without purpose was just stupidity. Lucas glared at him the entire ride home, but 3 days later, he stopped picking random fights. When Aiden stayed awake studying until dawn, Elliot confiscated his books, telling him he looked like a corpse and needed to sleep. Aiden stared in disbelief. No adult had ever told him to rest before. When Lily refused to eat her vegetables, Elliot declared she wouldn't leave the table until she finished. She cried, and though Elliot wanted to give in, the system urged him to stay strong. An hour later, Lily proudly ate everything, waddled over and hugged Elliot's leg. Elliot froze. "Release me." "No." The system cackled, congratulating him because his victim now loved him, leaving Elliot looking genuinely miserable. Things only complicated further. One rainy night, Cedric returned home early and stopped at the dining room doorway. His children were laughing. Lucas was arguing loudly. Lily was sitting on Elliot's lap stealing food from his plate, and Aiden was smiling. Cedric watched silently. Elliot noticed him first and immediately shoved Lily off his lap, telling her to stop clinging. Lily stumbled, but Cedric moved instantly, catching her before she hit the floor. The room went silent. Cedric Hartwell had never reacted that fast for anyone. Lily blinked up at him, and Cedric looked strangely unsettled, as if realizing something important. He lifted his eyes toward Elliot, making him nervous. The system whispered that the husband was starting to look at him like a problem he wanted to keep forever. Elliot immediately stood up. "Terrible. I hate this family. Good night." He fled upstairs while Cedric watched him go. That night, the system floated beside his bed and asked why he was trying so hard. Elliot stared at the ceiling, noting how lonely the mansion felt at night. Because nobody protected those kids in the original story, they became monsters because every adult failed them. After a long pause, the system softly reminded him that they would still become villains. Elliot closed his eyes. "Then I'll at least make sure they become villains who survive." Downstairs, the 3 children sat awake thinking about their stepmother, while Cedric stood alone in his office staring at untouched paperwork, realizing his home no longer felt empty. The first official rumors about Lucien Hartwell spread 2 months later, detailing how he forced the young masters to apologize publicly, made the young miss carry her own school bag, and banned desserts after midnight. High society was horrified. Cedric read the gossip paper during breakfast. "You banned cake." Elliot sipped his tea. "I'm cultivating discipline." Lucas muttered that he was evil, which made the system ecstatic, though Elliot tried not to smile. Lily tugged his sleeve. "Can villains still have strawberry tarts?" "No." Cruel. Cedric watched them quietly. The children were speaking, eating, and sleeping more, and the servants had stopped trembling. Lucien was harsher than before, yet the mansion felt warmer, a contradiction that irritated Cedric because he couldn't understand it. A week later, Elliot attended the Children's Academy evaluation, an event the original Lucien would have avoided. He quickly discovered that the wealthy parents in this world were unbearable. "I heard the Hartwell children still struggle socially," one parent remarked softly. "Trauma after losing their mother is understandable." Lucas clenched his fists. Aiden's expression went blank, and Lily lowered her head. Elliot felt his irritation spike. The system warned him to maintain his villain persona. "Oh, absolutely," Elliot said smoothly, causing the other parents to brighten before he continued. "That's why they're already outperforming your children academically, despite their trauma." The room went silent. Lucas choked, Aiden looked stunned, and Lily's eyes sparkled. The parent stiffened. "Excuse me." Elliot smiled coldly. "I simply mean that children who achieve excellence despite disadvantages are far more impressive than children who are handed everything." The system cheered, awarding him dark points for elegant psychological violence. As the parents walked away offended, Lucas stared at him. "You defended us." "I insulted them. Don't misunderstand. But you defended us while insulting them. That was accidental." Aiden spoke quietly. "You knew my test scores." Elliot froze. Obviously, no one else does. The eldest boy looked genuinely confused, unable to comprehend why anyone would care, which made Elliot's chest hurt again. That evening, the system appeared while Elliot was reorganizing Lily's medicine cabinet, accusing him of getting attached. "No, I'm not," Elliot argued. "You memorized their allergies. That's survival instinct. You tucked Lily into bed yesterday. She looked cold. You threatened a teacher for insulting Lucas. I was being villainous. The system stared silently, noting that Elliot's definition of evil was deeply concerning. Before Elliot could reply, Cedric stepped inside and noticed the medicine bottles. You checked Lily's prescriptions. She's taking the wrong dosage. She's 7. And this amount would sedate a horse. Cedric's eyes sharpened, and the room grew cold and dangerous. The system predicted someone was about to lose their job. By morning, the doctor was dismissed from the estate forever, and Cedric began looking at Elliot differently, closely, as if trying to solve a puzzle. Then came a school fight where Lucas beat another student unconscious. The academy demanded punishment, and Cedric arrived first, his presence alone making the adults nervous. Lucas sat bruised and bleeding, and when asked what happened, he muttered that the boy had insulted his mother. The teacher awkwardly explained that the other child had mentioned Lord Lucian's reputation. Cedric asked for the exact words, but nobody answered because the air had grown too heavy to breathe. Elliot arrived moments later. The second Lucas saw him, he stiffened, expecting disappointment. Elliot looked at the bruises, sighed, and said, "You lost control." Lucas lowered his head. But Elliot crossed his arms. "You chose someone larger than you. You protected the family reputation despite poor odds, reckless but not cowardly." Lucas blinked rapidly, and Cedric turned his gaze toward Elliot. The system shrieked that he was raising mob bosses, but Elliot ignored it, looking at Lucas coldly. Next time, win without getting caught. Lucas looked like he might cry from happiness. That night, Cedric entered Elliot's room without warning. "You changed them." Elliot didn't look up from his book. "No, I discipline them. They smile now. That sounds inconvenient for you." Cedric stepped closer. "Why are you doing this?" "Because nobody protected them before." Elliot knew loneliness too well, and somewhere between the fake cruelty and accidental care, he had started loving them. But since the original character would never admit that, he just smirked. "Maybe I'm training them into proper villains." Cedric stared at him for several seconds, then unexpectedly let out a low, genuine laugh. Elliot nearly dropped his book, and the system issued a critical warning that the male lead was developing feelings. Cedric stepped closer, his presence enveloping Elliot. "You're strange lately." Elliot's pulse skipped. It was dangerous because Cedric was finally paying attention, and Elliot worried he wouldn't survive it intact. The first time Lily called Elliot Mama, well, the entire mansion stopped breathing. She said it casually, half asleep and curled against him during a thunderstorm. Elliot froze, the system froze, and even the rain outside seemed to quiet down. Lucas dropped his spoon, Aiden looked up sharply, and Cedric went completely still in the doorway. Lily blinked awake, realized what she had said, and turned pale. "I am sorry. Eat your soup," Elliot said immediately. "You'll catch a cold." "You're not angry." Elliot forced himself to remain cold. "Why would I care what you call me?" Lily burst into tears, which was clearly the wrong answer. The system whispered that he had emotionally adopted her, even if he denied it. Later that night, Elliot noticed that Cedric had moved his office from the east wing closer to the family rooms, closer to him. Winter arrived harshly, bringing the story's original protagonist, Rowan Evernight, the beautiful Omega destined to attract the novel's dangerous characters, including Elliot's stepchildren. The system immediately panicked. Rowan entered the ballroom during a noble gathering, drawing everyone's attention. Even Elliot had to admit the man was gorgeous. Rowan walked past the crowd and stopped directly in front of Elliot to introduce himself, watching him as if searching for something. The system began hyperventilating, terrified that the target had shifted. "I've heard many things about Lord Lucian," Rowan said softly, most of them unpleasant, hopefully. Rowan laughed unexpectedly. Across the ballroom, Cedric's wine glass cracked. Aiden noticed immediately. Lucas looked murderous, and Lily glared openly. The system whispered that his family was becoming territorial. Things escalated during dinner when a drunken noble loudly mocked Lucian's reputation, claiming he had trapped Cedric through marriage and was now playing house with children who weren't his. The man never finished speaking because Aiden calmly poured boiling tea directly onto the table, inches from the man's hand. Silence exploded across the room. The eldest boy smiled politely. "My apologies," my hand slipped. The noble went pale, Lucas cracked his knuckles, Lily stared without blinking, and Cedric looked proud. The system noted that the family was officially uniting. Elliot immediately stood up. That's enough. The children stiffened under his cold gaze. Embarrassing behavior. If you threaten someone, do it properly. The entire ballroom went silent while Cedric covered his mouth to hide a smile. Later that night, Cedric cornered Elliot on the snow-drifted balcony. You protected them again. Elliot crossed his arms. I protected family dignity. You always say cruel things while doing kind ones, Cedric said, stepping closer and gently brushing snowflakes from Elliot's hair. His voice lowered. What exactly are you pretending to be afraid of? Elliot forgot how to breathe. Cedric looked at him like he already knew the cruelty was a performance. The system screamed to abort the mission, and Elliot shoved Cedric backward. Don't touch me without permission. Cedric stared, then slowly smiled. There you are. That smile was terrifying because Elliot suddenly realized Cedric liked it when he fought back. The car accident happened 3 years later. By then, the children were older, sharper, and exactly as dangerous as the system had intended. Aiden controlled noble politics from the shadows, Lucas ran underground networks, and Lily was an expert in untraceable poisons, and all three loved Elliot intensely. Cedric had become openly possessive, cold to the world but soft only toward him. The system finally announced that the main mission was complete, leaving Elliot frozen. I can go home. He expected relief, but a painful ache settled in his chest because this world and this family no longer felt fake. That evening, Lily hugged him tightly before school, asking him to come back early. Lucas reminded him of a dinner promise. Aiden adjusted his scarf, and Cedric kissed his forehead, telling him to drive carefully. Elliot smiled, but at the intersection, a truck hit his car. Metal screamed, glass exploded, and his last thought before darkness took him was that he had never said goodbye properly. The funeral lasted 3 days. Nobody cried publicly, which frightened people more. Cedric stood beside the coffin like a silent, terrifying statue. Aiden handled political guests with mechanical calm. Lucas nearly killed 2 reporters, and Lily poisoned someone for disrespecting Elliot's memory. The system watched in horror as grief turned into total collapse. Within months, Cedric stopped attending government meetings, and 3 noble families disappeared after criticizing Lucien. Lucas took over the criminal underworld completely. Aiden manipulated trade systems badly enough to crash entire regions. And Lily stopped smiling forever. The world began rotting around their grief as wars started and governments fell. Nobody could stop them anymore because they no longer cared if the world survived. Meanwhile, Elliot was back in his original apartment, alive but unable to sleep or eat. He couldn't stop wondering if Lily remembered her medicine, if Lucas was skipping breakfast, if Aiden was overworking, or if Cedric was alone in that enormous, empty room. Then one night, the system appeared again, covered in digital flames, announcing that the world was dying because his family had become psychologically catastrophic after his death. The system opened a screen showing burning cities, political riots, and his family looking like ghosts amidst the chaos. Elliot's chest ached badly. To stabilize the world, you need to return permanently, the system sighed. Can I see them? Elliot whispered. The system paused, then softened. You really love them, huh? Elliot laughed weakly. Yeah. With a dramatic groan from the system, the world shattered around him. When Elliot opened his eyes, he was standing inside the Hartwell mansion. Everything looked darker and broken. A servant spotted him, dropped their tray, and screamed his name. Footsteps thundered through the house, and suddenly Cedric was there. The Alpha stopped several feet away, his eyes bloodshot and his hands shaking, unable to believe what he was seeing. Elliot's chest tightened. Cedric. The Alpha crossed the room instantly, grabbing Elliot so tightly it hurt, terrified that letting go would make him disappear again. You died, Cedric whispered, his voice breaking as he fell apart against Elliot's neck. Elliot wrapped his arms around him automatically, whispering an apology. The children arrived seconds later. Lucas stopped abruptly, afraid that touching him would ruin the illusion. Aiden looked pale, and Lily burst into tears. Elliot opened his arms, and all 3 crashed into him at once, nearly knocking him over. Lucas was openly crying. Aiden hid his face against Elliot's shoulder. Lily clung desperately, and Cedric refused to let go from behind. The system sniffled dramatically at the display. Elliot laughed through his tears, finally shedding the act. I missed you too. The three children froze and looked up because Elliot had never said anything like that before. Lucas's lips trembled. Aiden closed his eyes, Lily cried harder, and Cedric quietly kissed the side of his head. Life afterward became strange because the family stopped pretending to be normal. Lucas threatened anyone who looked at Elliot too long. Aiden organized political schedules around family dinners. Lily slept in Elliot's room during storms, and Cedric became incredibly attentive, coming home early just because he missed him, much to the children's annoyance and the system's feigned disgust. Elliot eventually learned that the family had searched desperately for ways to resurrect him, destroying nations and manipulating governments in the process. When he found out Lily had nearly poisoned herself trying experimental rituals, he exploded at her. Lily looked guilty while Cedric wisely stepped backward. You could have died, Elliot shouted. I already felt dead, Lily whispered. The anger shattered instantly. Elliot walked forward and hugged her tightly, assuring her he was here now. Lily sobbed, Lucas looked away, Aiden covered his eyes, and Cedric immediately wrapped all of them together, a broken, terrifying, but complete family. The truth finally came out during dinner when Cedric noticed Elliot talking to the air again and asked who he was speaking to. The children looked nervous, and Lily worried aloud if he was sick again. That broke Elliot's resolve, so he told them everything about his previous world, waking up as Lucian, the system, the mission, and the tragic future he had been trying to prevent by acting like a cruel stepmother. A heavy silence followed, but suddenly a glowing blue screen popped into existence above the table. Well, this is awkward, the system announced, floating proudly with tiny glitch effects. Hello, emotionally unstable people. I'm the system. Lucas almost flipped the table. Lily screamed. Aiden looked genuinely horrified, and Cedric slowly stood up, asking if he could kill it. The system complained to Elliot that his husband was threatening it. Elliot buried his face in his hands. You can all see it now. Yep, since the truth is out, visibility restrictions are removed. The system spun happily. Congratulations, we are officially a found family trope now. I hate this thing, Lucas muttered. Rude. I raised you too. Even Aiden laughed at that, and the truth no longer felt heavy. Months later, the system appeared one last time for a final confirmation while Elliot sat surrounded by paperwork, his children, and an extremely close husband. You may still choose to leave this world permanently, the system said. The room went entirely silent. Cold fear washed over Cedric's expression, and the children froze. Elliot looked at them, at the family he had accidentally built instead of ruining, and sighed. Why would I leave home? The system went quiet, then dramatically pretended to cry over the happy ending. Lily laughed, Lucas rolled his eyes, Aiden smiled softly, and Cedric pulled Elliot closer to kiss his temple. Outside, the snow fell quietly over the estate while warm lights glowed through the windows, and for the first time in a very long time, nobody inside felt alone.